Recently my studio spent a great deal of time talking about mastery and what that meant and how you get there and what does that mean when you're doing the day-to-day practice stuff in the practice room. We were trying to think of analogous ways to connect with other things that we do in our lives. And one of the things we came up with as a trick to help us think about our practice sessions before we dove into them was to think of 5 practice questions and to keep them in the forefront of our mind while we were practicing. Here are the 5 questions. One of them was, am I playing at the right speed? And it was amazing how many times we would be creating problems or ignoring problems or not hearing problems because we were playing at an incorrect speed. And it's not always fast speeds. Fast speed, of course, is too fast to hear sometimes, and or too fast to think, or have your brain catch up to your fingers. But sometimes practicing too slow completely eliminates any possibility that you'll feel exactly what you need to feel to go at the right speed. So playing at the right speed would be very nice. And of course, a metronome would be our main tool here if we wanted to stay at the right speed. Then my second question we thought about would be, what do I sound like? And it's funny, we always take the students come to the teacher and they're expecting the teacher to tell them, well, how did I sound? But it's really up to the student. And my job as a teacher is to teach them how to be their own teacher, because they're going to spend more time in their life without me than they are with me. So I want them to think about these things for themselves. And what do I sound like? What's my tone? Is it something that I think people would enjoy listening to? Do I enjoy listening to it? And I'm always surprised to hear how many students who don't seem to be aware of what they're sounding like. They're not listening, and I'm thinking to myself, well, why do you want me to listen to you if you're not going to do any of the listening too? So how can you listen better? Well, now with the smartphone technology, just about everyone has that, and they can put on those recordings on their phone and listen to what they sound like. And I highly recommend practicing listening to a recording of yourself and then getting that constant instant feedback. Some of them, there's one called Heard that it does the last 30 seconds, so you can stop in the middle of your practice and hit the button and listen to the last 30 seconds that you just did. There's another one out there we were using called Slow Pro, which can come back at 50% the speed, which is an octave lower than what you've been playing. And that's very enlightening for a string player because you can hear every string crossing. You can hear even whether it was accurate, if it was sloppy, if it was rhythmic. It's a very useful tool as well. So, and then we use our little practice tool where we have the metronome going, and we figure out what speed we think is the right speed. So we'll be hitting that. And then the minute we hit a bump in the road, we click the metronome down one, hit another bump in the road, click the metronome down one, hit another bump in the road, click it down. And by the time they finish, they may be 10 clicks slower than where they started, but that's the tools that we use for what do I sound like. So the first 2 questions, am I playing at the right speed? What do I sound like? Those 2 kind of go hand in hand. The third one is, am I playing in tune? So surprisingly, that seems to be very difficult for string players because we have to change our tuning sometimes depending on who we are playing with. For example, playing with a piano has a different tuning system. It's a well-tempered kind of a tuning, which I often use as well when I play in the professional quartet. But then when I'm playing solo Bach, I would have slightly different tuning because I would have higher leading tones. So am I playing in tune? Well, we need to have some kind of outside reference point to follow. And a lot of the phones now, the phone technology has those tuner apps. And I regularly use ClearTune myself, and I look at it, and I make my students look at it because, that thing doesn't lie. So my ears might be playing a trick on me if I have stuffy nose or allergy season or something. So that's what I use. The fourth question is my rhythm accurate? And again, this goes back to the metronome, which we often use, but nothing ever really takes the place of a good metronome session. Just really listening to yourself and finding out where those places are in the music when you want to speed up or slow down, and figuring out how to get around those things. Those are all very good. And then the final question that we like to ask in a practice session is, are there any bumps in the road? And I'm always talking about car analogies, but that seems to be a very common thing for most of us. We all drive. So how would you fix a bump in the road when you come to it, and come to it repeatedly? Like every day I drive to work on the same route. So if I'm hitting a bump in the road, I need to deal with it. Now, my father was one of those fathers that got very angry if you hit a bump in the road because apparently it does a lot of damage to your tires. Maybe that's a dad thing, I don't know, but maybe women don't think about these things or care. But dads were like, please don't hit the bump in the road. You're ruining the tires in the car and the alignment and blah, blah, blah. So let's put that through. You could solve your bump in the road problem by driving right through the hole. But like I said, fathers get angry with that. And frankly, I think teachers do too, because it doesn't really solve the problem. It just puts wear and tear on everyone around you. So driving through the hole, I don't recommend this one. You could drive around the hole, and that is an option sometimes when you've tried everything you can and that fingering is just not working, that bowing is just not quite working, then coming up with another solution that goes around the problem but still accomplishes what you need to accomplish, maybe that's the solution. And the third possibility that I'm coming up with on a short time in this video is to repair the hole. You could just figure out what the problem is and then do your little techniques to practice to get rid of the hole. And those are a whole subject of other videos, and we will spend time on those later. But for now, those are the 5 basic questions, and I'll have to summarize them real quickly because I think they're really useful to have hanging on a laminated card outside your practice room door so that you can remember to do them every time. Am I playing at the right speed? What do I sound like? Am I playing in tune? Is my rhythm accurate? And are there any bumps in the road? How am I going to fix that?